Hello and welcome to BFCA. In the last two videos in this series, we looked at the first two factors in the irreducible minimum of 3, namely personal service and control. In this video, we'll look at mutuality of obligation. This is one of the most difficult areas in IR35 case law, and so takes quite a bit to understand. To recap, because mutuality of obligation is one of the irreducible minimum of 3 factors that need to be present in a contract of employment or a contract of service, without it, the contract will be outside of IR35. HMRC provides some guidance at ESM 0543, but they're very quiet on the subject, as it's difficult to establish if there is any kind of mutuality at all in some contracts. It has to be looked at with the other two parts of the irreducible minimum of 3 factors required for employment to exist, and it needs to be considered before any of the other more general factors in deciding if an engagement's one of employment. You'll hear more about this in the next video. The first point about mutuality of obligation is that it is about mutuality and not about unilateral or one-sided obligations. If a work provider is obliged to offer work, but the worker is not obliged to do it, then there can be no two-sided obligation, no mutuality, only unilateral or one-sided obligations. The second point about mutuality is that for an employment test it's far deeper than a superficial test of obligations. It involves the deeper degree of trust, commitment and confidence that you would expect in an employment relationship or one of master and servant. If there's no ongoing commitment to maintain an employment relationship, then there's no mutuality of obligation between the parties. So in order for mutuality of obligation to exist, the end client has to provide work and the worker has to carry it out. In respect of IR35, the most useful case on mutuality of obligations is Synaptec v. Young 2003. In this particular case, HMRC agreed that if there was no obligation on the agency to provide work for the whole of the contract period, then there was not sufficient mutuality of obligations in the contract. Mr. Justice Hart also distinguished between mutuality beyond the contract and within it, two different aspects of mutuality. And in this case, he decided there was sufficient mutuality of obligations, as there was an obligation on the client to allocate work during the whole of the contract, and there was a 4-week notice period. For further clarity, you may wish to have your understanding of the practical arrangements in place in relation to mutuality of obligations confirmed by your client and your staffing company if you work through an agency in a confirmation letter. That's the end of this video, which covers the last of the irreducible minimum of 3. As well as these 3 factors, there are several other factors to look at when you're considering the bigger picture. We'll go through these in the next video. Thanks for listening.